Hey everyone, this is Madison, and welcome back to my Mad Reviews. No, sorry, I'm a little tired, so I'm getting kind of giddy. Um, I wanted to go ahead and record this video before it was scheduled to be posted, but I'm very tired, so I'm probably gonna. It's probably not a good idea that I do the video now, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I'm bored. So this particular movie, as you can tell by the title, is about the second movie, Alien movie, in the Alien franchise. Okay. Now, before we move on to the reasons behind, or what it is exactly that I have a problem with in this particular movie, we need to do a little brushing up on movie number one. So in movie number one, we know that the crew are on they're on a commercial ship. It's a commercial towing ship, as a matter of fact. They're miners, called Nostromo, and it homed in on a transmission from a derelict spaceship on an uncharted planetoid. So the computer then proceeded to wake up the crew so that they could be dispatched to go investigate, probably for salvaging purposes, because especially if it's a derelict, spaceship of an unknown origin, there stands a high possibility that they can make a lot of money if it's technology that's unknown to the modern world. That's critical. So, anyways, they're woken by the ship's computer and dispatched to investigate. Now, we later on learn that the planetoid is named LV-426. But if you recall, it only took one of these crab-like facehuggers to take the entire crew down. And I looked it up because they don't really tell you, and it's hard to gauge the passage of time in a movie unless it's actually spoken about, that it only took 12 total hours to demolish the entire crew. Okay? So, I mean, at first, they show, Kane has this thing on his face and they're dragging him back to the ship, and Ripley is just not wanting to have that shit in the ship. She's telling him flat out, no, that's a violation of the regulations, and I'm not letting him in because we don't know what the hell it is or how dangerous it is. And she was right. They shouldn't have let him in, but they did. So anyway, so they take him back to the medical room, and, they attempt to dispatch it from his face, by cutting off one of its fingers, and that's when they realize the blood's made of acid, and decide, okay, well, he's breathing and his organ functions are doing fine, so I guess we'll just let him sit there. Yeah, we'll just let him sit there. And the thing is that at least in, Star Trek, which, was written way before the Alien franchise movies began, they would have done body scanning to see what the hell was going on with this thing. To say, oh, look, it's laying eggs inside this person's body. They didn't have this technology, but okay, that's beside the point. So anyway, so the thing eventually dies, and then it falls off his face, and they go, Kane, welcome back. Yeah, you're okay, buddy. Yeah, you had this thing stuck to your face, and it's dead now. But yeah, everyone's having dinner. Go, help yourself. Chow down, buddy. Are you serious? I mean, shouldn't he have been kept in quarantine for a while? And shouldn't you have had some type of body scanner to say, oh, look, there's something fucking growing inside your body, dude. You can't leave. You gotta stay here. We need to know what the hell this thing is. Or at least operate and get it the fuck out. No, none of that. They just release him and let him go, and he goes down and sits down to have dinner with the crew. And this is, of course, when we first are introduced to the alien, because it then bursts violently through his chest cavity. And, everyone's freaking out, naturally. I would be freaking out, too. I'd be freaking out and puking because, I'm eating. So anyway, this little newborn, just freshly gestated or freshly hatched alien, before anyone can react, makes a dash for it and is gone into the spaceship, presumably the air ducts, I'm sure. So Then this thing begins to grow at an extremely rapid rate, becomes extremely large and scary, and proceeds to slaughter everyone on board, like I said, within 12 hours, with the exception of Ripley and a cat. So, of course, we know that after everyone was dead, she decided to set the ship to self-destruct, assuming that the alien was still on the ship, and enter into an escape pod with her cat. The ship blows up, the escape pod goes off, and then she realizes, oh, the alien was smart enough to get into the escape pod with me. Well, she ends up, managing to save herself by, blowing it out of the air system. So that's the end of the movie. But now, the only reason why I'm brushing over the basics of the first movie is to remind you of this. Ripley, in the first movie, was a warrant officer, not a pilot, nor was she a flight officer. She was a warrant officer. Okay, they make no indication whatsoever that she is a pilot, was a pilot, or will be a pilot, or has piloting skills. The basic premise of the crew's sole purpose in this first movie was mining. Now, of course, they had a pilot, but most of the ship's operations were done by the I think it was the artificial intelligent android thing, and the computer. I can't remember what the computer was called, but anyway, so she wasn't a pilot. She was just a warrant officer, and there is a reason I am mentioning this now, and you will understand why later. So let us now turn our focus onto the movie that I actually want to do this video about, which is Aliens, the second one. So we see that Ripley was rescued from a scavenger team after drifting for 57 years while in stasis. Now, I understand that stasis is a science fiction concept of the suspension of time. But come on, really? 57 years and she doesn't age not even a single day? That's just a little too far-fetched for me. I'm sorry. I don't, and it's not that she was moving at a high velocity either, so I don't want to hear people talk about the velocity of speed of travel, blah, 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 versus this, that, and the other thing, because they clearly state that she was drifting. Okay, but I do understand she was in stasis, and that's a science fiction concept regarding the suspension of time, but I'm supposed to buy into that crap, and I really don't. But I'm going to have to let it slide because it is, after all, a science fiction movie, and fantasy and sci-fi movies are not exactly based on reality. So, I mean, with the exception of sci-fi, sometimes sci-fi can be based on future possibilities and actually do not encourage, but inspire technology from their movies. So anyway, I'm just gonna have to deal with that concept that she drifted for 57 years and didn't look like a fucking mummy. So this, however, significant amount of time span that took place is still it becomes critical later on as a major plot hole concerning her knowledge in regards to modern technology, as far as I'm concerned. Now, here's where I start having issues with the movie as a whole. Ripley is rescued, and so is the cat. It's 57 years later, and naturally she's up for review regarding her decision to self-destruct the highly expensive ship. She's frustratingly trying to convince them of her story about the alien. They make it quite clear that she's discussing to them what is an unknown hostile life form, and ultimately they decide to revoke her pilot's license. And they actually say this by stating the following quote: "It is the finding of this board of inquiry that Warrant Officer Ellen Ripley, NOC-14672, has acted with questionable judgment and is unfit to hold an ICC license as a commercial flight officer." What? She wasn't a pilot or a flight officer in the first movie. Nowhere in the movie did they ever indicate that she was. So what flight officer pilot license did she have to revoke in the first place? None. That's what. None whatsoever. But so when she begs them to investigate LV 426, they then inform her that there's no need to because they've been terraforming it for 20 years with approximately 60 to 70 families living on it. And that according to them, there is no indigenous life form, that has been discovered on LV 426. Of course, which she informs them, did you hear what I said? It's not indigenous. It was a derelict spaceship. It's an alien. So anyway, Ripley is then sent off. She's, got to do all this shit. She's got to get a job, a home, and, got to do mandatory psych evals and blah, blah, blah. And may or may not have to pay for blowing up a ship, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, ironically, of course, for the movie to continue, they lose contact with LV 426, and who do they go running to? Ripley, naturally. Why? Well, because they are sending out a team of Marines and they want her along as an advisor. Burke contacts her, asking her to tag along, in which she adamantly refuses the first time around. And I can't say that I blame her, because I sure as hell wouldn't want to go back if I were her. I mean, let it be their problem from now on. I mean, she's landed herself a job, which had to be tough being out of the working system for the last 57 years, being behind on everything. But she now at least has a job operating loaders on the docks. I'm pretty sure it doesn't pay great because her apartment looks like it looks like a studio apartment. You open the door and there's her bed. There is no like living room, dining room, kitchen. It's just like open the door, there's a bed. So she's obviously not getting paid well, but at least she has a job, because 57 years is a long time to be out of the workplace. But yeah, me personally, I would have told him to go get bent, which she did. And I would have told him to go get bent, put my file on record, and let the crew read that from the ship. And because there's no need for me to be there. So, well, eventually, I guess, she wakes up from a nightmare and decides, hey, if I'm going to, overcome my fear, I've got to face my fear, so I'm going to agree to go. Now, nowhere between the scene of her accepting this job as an advisor and her awakening on the new ship do they show or indicate in any fashion that she's received any form of training for a position as a flight officer or as anything else for that matter, because one of the things that Burke had said was that if she decided and agreed to go, he could get her pilot license reinstated. Remember, she didn't have one to be reinstated in the first place. Even though they revoked the pilot license that she didn't have, they revoked it, and now they want to give it back, and now she's on this new ship, but she's received no training to have a pilot license. I mean, if anybody has been out of the techno loop for 57 years, you don't just hand them a pilot license and say, here, buddy, go figure it out. No, you put them through training and say, hey, look, this is how you do it. This is how you operate this piece of machinery. This is how these are the levers you pull and the gadgets that are here and the buttons do this and blah, 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 blah. And you don't just say, okay, boom, I just gave you a pilot license. Ain't you happy? 57 years, really? I don't think after 57 years, if I woke up from like a coma or something, I don't think I would know how to operate a cell phone, because it would be so far different than what it was like when I first, entered into my coma. I mean, think about how quickly technology changes in our world today as it stands. New gadgets become obsolete within a year or so, and no sooner do you buy a new gadget than something even newer is created and then marketed. And then as soon as you buy this gadget, it's obsolete anyway, because something else is coming along right behind it that's even different. And we are in a constant flux of learning how to operate new technology all the time. We're constantly challenged with new technology all the time, from computers to phones to medical equipment, you name it. Technology is on a fast track, and I'm sorry, but 57 years is a very long time to be out of the loop. And I highly doubt I would feel confident allowing someone to be reinstated as a pilot without that training involved first. Because these ships have probably, more than likely, drastically been improved in those 57 years and are worth gazillions of dollars. I mean, the old one was worth a lot of money as it was. Imagine how much money this new one's going to cost. So anyway, there we go. But it gets even better. Now, do you remember when during her briefing, the investigators claimed that this life form Ripley had described was unknown to them? Well, then how come when the crew is awakened on the ship and is receiving their debriefing as to what the mission statement is, Hudson asks, "Hey, is this going to be a stand-up fight, sir, or a bug hunt?" To which Gorman replies, "All we know that there's still no contact with the colony and that a xenomorph may be involved." And then Hicks states, "It's a bug hunt." Yeah, if this was an unknown species until Ripley told them about it, then how come it now has a name and these Marines know that a xenomorph is a bug-like creature and that's what it's called? I mean, I can understand that the corporation, if they decided to give the alien a name based on Ripley's description of it after interrogating her, but those Marines would not have access to that information, and they make it clear that they don't have access to that information because Ripley is standing there and Gordon is trying to explain to them that Ripley's sole purpose is to inform them of this information and that her information is also on record for them to review. But these Marines are just casually discussing this bug hunt with a xenomorph as if they've known all this time that a xenomorph was a big alien bug-like creature. And yeah, they've faced it before. No big deal. We're going to go out and take care of it again. Very casual. So anyway, later on, Ripley offers to help out by driving a loader because, as she informs them, she's earned a Class 2 rating with that type of equipment. And this does go back to her stating that that was her job that she landed, recently on the docks. And then proceeds to climb into a huge bodied armor type of machinery operated like a forklift by her hands and feet. She looks like a big old mecha something or other. Yeah, just, it's badass looking. So, anyway, once again, throughout the course of the movie, everyone dies with the exception of Ripley, an orphan young girl named Newt, and a ripped up, banged up synthetic named Bishop. Now, here is Ripley rampaging through the ship, operating a flamethrower, a grenade launcher, freight elevators, etc. I mean, this woman is utilizing weapons of mass destruction that may not have changed much over the last 57 years, but she still sure doesn't seem to be taking much time inspecting on how to use them. So earlier she's even seen strapping herself and Newt into an APC, which is an armored personal carrier, and is slapping switches and then slams it into gear and drives off in it. And who taught her how to operate that? She's in a panic state. Did she stop to read the fucking manual before operating it? No, she's panicking. But she somehow knows how to operate this APC and get her and Newt out of Dodge, So it just the 57-year time lapse of her knowledge of technology doesn't mesh well. During the ending sequence, the alien queen is honing in on Newt as the little girl is scrambling for cover inside the service channels, and Ripley dons the power loader, and challenges the alien queen with the famous line of, "Get away from her, you bitch!" And once she has the queen pinned, she slaps a red button that is the inner door override button. She then latches the whole locking key down and then hits the outer door open button. And there was a brief moment of the queen latching onto Ripley's leg, and then the queen is sucked out into space. Not too shabby for someone who is 57 years out of the technology loop and should not have known how the hell to operate any of those components unless they were actually like labeled in English. Door lock or open this or shut that. Or unless Bishop was guiding her, which would have made a hell of a lot more sense. But he wasn't. He was busy, rescuing Newt from being sucked out with the Queen. So, I'm sorry, but after 57 years, I'd be lucky if I knew how to operate a microwave.